Welcome to Echoes of Understanding with Steph and Pete. We are two neurodivergent people who have been through our own journeys of growth and self discovery. As coaches, we have real conversations about life, personal growth, and seeing the world through different perspectives. We're all about nuance, empathy, and a lot of fun. Thanks for joining. Hello, welcome to Echoes of Understanding with Steph and Pete. I am Stephanie Ann Webb.
And I'm Peter Carrington.
Yay, yay,
We got
yay,
that
yay.
far.
I'm so excited.
We got that far. We're off to a great start.
I've already forgotten what our topic was.
Who knows? I think we're talking about we what we
Letting
discussed was letting go of was it others' expectations
others'
of
opinions.
others' opinions. Yeah,
I
that
had
works.
literally just said it before we hit record.
That's how it goes.
This is how things fall out of my brain sometimes. But
Hmm.
anyways, Peter and I just like to have discussions. We don't even want to make it a formal thing. It's just like chat.
How was your week, Stephanie Ann Webb?
My week
That.
was, I don't remember.
Hmm.
It was off and on, I suppose. Like just, stuff happening and then you learn to
Hmm.
adjust with your feelings of what's going on and
Right. Were you able to do that?
Hmm?
Were you able to do that?
Yes.
Just yeah.
Yes. I'm becoming more resilient
Hmm.
as an adult
I
because
like
I
that.
we didn't learn that as kids.
Hmm.
They talk about the younger generations not knowing that. I'm like, I'm Gen X. I didn't learn this either. So
Yeah.
uh call me marshmallow, whatever. I don't know. But I let everything get to me and I would just freak out and break down all the time. So
Yeah.
I'm having to learn this, parent myself now as an adult. Um, so please teach your children this if you can, because it's harder as an adult. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
However, it is what it is. But how was your week?
My week was good. As you know, I overdid it probably for the last 7 to 10 days. And as a result of that, recovering from a cold flu, finally got some rest, finally reset. So much better. But I just let it get away on me and tried to be all things to all people. And it's,
Um,
worthwhile work, but too much is too much. And so I had to learn to, I know to slow down. I know to take those breaks. I know to engage in those acts of self-care, but just didn't do it. So my body said, okay, well, we're going to do it for you. But other than that, it was a great week. Yeah.
it's good
Successful.
to it's
Yeah.
the things that we know
Hmm.
versus actually implementing them.
Yeah.
And it's easy, and I find this in the coachy world, which is why
Hmm.
I personally find coach like the word feels a certain way to me
Yeah.
personally. Because there are many people who know stuff, but to do it is a whole other level. And that's why it's easy to tell other people what to do and lead other people. Leading
Mhm.
yourself completely harder.
Yeah. Yeah.
And using those tools. So people will say, do you have the tools, Stephanie? This is what I'm like,
Hmm.
I know. Thank you. But how do I do this myself? Yes, working on
That's
it.
something I say to you.
Yeah, sometimes I get mad at you. Like,
Yeah,
Peter.
you don't care for that dialogue from me, do you?
Well, I think it's because I know it.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm not really asking, I suppose.
Yeah.
But you like to help people fix things. I
Yeah.
think we all do. And I get it.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
then I'm
Because
like, Peter, I need you to listen to me.
when I yeah, when I hear something that presents as a problem or needs a solution, I am locked and loaded.
Yeah.
And yeah, I start listening to ways I could solve your problem as I'm listening to you explain what's going on. So, and all you need to do is be heard. So, I'm practicing that part of my active listening skills, and I know it. I preach it, but I don't always practice it. So,
But I understand it
yeah.
as well. So when you do that, I know what he's doing. And so I don't
Mhm.
I might get mad at you for a second, but like I also understand where you're coming from. But
Good.
it's nice that why do I do this all the time? I don't know. Um,
All right.
it's nice that we work on these things too,
Yeah.
because we understand and we're like, okay, I'm still working on this. So, um, yeah, it's, healthy communication is wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's human beings being human beings, right?
Yes.
And old habits die hard, as they say, and they really do. I think what helps me though, in coaching folks, it's sometimes it's more of I'm reminding myself that I am coaching them through some things, and they're getting something from it. But I find myself really getting into what I'm saying, and I'm really preaching to myself and really reminding myself how important these things are, especially if someone's going through an issue, especially if someone's getting burnt out because they're doing too much, right? I will talk them through that. And lo and behold, like at least once a week, it comes up and it hits to a topic that I'm going through or I'm getting ready to go through. And it's really good to have those tools close by and fresh at hand or fresh in your mind. So,
Everything's a reminder.
Mhm.
This is what I've noticed, the understanding that the things that pop up in life, I'm like, okay, what can I learn from this? What can I get out of this? How can I use this? That changed my life because I
Mhm.
would always see these things come up. I'm like, oh, I'm such a victim. Oh, this sucks. Blah, 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 blah. But everything can be an opportunity for growth.
Yeah,
So it's
really.
exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, but that's not our topic today. Wait, what are we
What is
talking? What?
it?
Letting go of the opinions of others. That's okay. It's a chat.
All right.
Um, so were you easily influenced as a kid, or were you somebody who was like, I don't care what the opinions of others is, I know myself?
Um, a little bit of both. I would say the black sheep in me was always going against the grain, and if they said it was blue, I'm just going to say it's green because that's my nature, right? Contrarian, right? And I don't consider myself that, but I think it got to the point where I was just so tired of listening to people's advice or their opinions and things that they're just parroting or repeating because they've heard it somewhere else. That I kind of resist it. But in full disclosure, I have to say, like, yeah, as a child, you are influenced, and I wasn't always, walking on my own path. A lot of times, I would just do things to conform, especially since it was easier for me to do that so I can fit in and not stand out, right? Because I knew I learned differently, right, than others did. And so therefore I was different than others. So in order to be like them, I have to act like them. And part of acting like them was buying into the opinions of others, whether they're little people like me or grown-ups, right? And so I would say as a child, it was kind of 50-50, but in the alone times, when I was sitting alone, I thought about things. I always saw the truth. And sometimes what knew as the truth lined up with what was being said. Other times it just did not. And I found that to be very frustrating. Yeah. Does
That's
that make
awesome.
sense?
It does.
Okay.
I think anytime you ask me, does that make sense? I understand it. It makes sense to me.
Good.
Uh,
Just
yeah.
you and me, kid.
But
Right.
there was this, okay, so I have my background religious wise has been kind of eclectic a little bit because we
Yeah.
went to different denominations and whatnot. However, there is this thing, and if I can get the name of it right, Institute and Living Basic Life Principles or something. Bill Gothard, look it up, guys. Cult.
Gauther. Is it?
Gothard.
Okay.
Gothard. There's a documentary called Shiny Happy People on Amazon Prime about the Duggars, and
Nice.
they discuss that they still deeply are in this. Anyway,
Hmm.
I attended conferences. My parents attended his conferences. We weren't super in it, especially as it got more like homeschooly.
Right.
But the teachings of that also went into the mainstream evangelical world, which is kind of what I came out of.
Right.
So it's all got its hands together in different things. And just,
Mm.
yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
I listened to this podcast where this woman had grown up in it. They actually lived on the base and her parents worked there and whatever. She said at
Mhm.
5 years old, I knew that this didn't feel right.
Wasn't working.
And I'm thinking, whoa, at 5 years old?
Yeah.
That wasn't me. I think my body was telling me that I felt off about things
Right.
because I had anxiety, and that's your body's way of telling you something's off. Now,
Yeah.
there's
Absolutely.
various reasons for that, but I,
Sure.
I always felt uncomfortable with certain teachings that we had at church, at home. I would challenge my dad and say, I don't know. And then you just cut, no, this is what the Bible says, and that's what God says. And
This is
ha,
what we do. This is what we're
I,
doing.
this is my interpretation. Rah, 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 rah. That's what I do. That's my voice. Sorry,
Nice.
you're drinking. Uh, I always tell people don't drink while I'm about to say something because sometimes you know, they laugh. So
Yeah.
anyway, uh, but I just followed what everyone told me.
Yeah.
I was scared to question. So
Hmm.
the voices of others for me personally has been a huge journey of coming out of it.
Yeah.
And even to this, well, maybe not so much now, but the past few years, just really starting to listen to what feels right for me.
Right.
And I've been, in the entrepreneurial spaces, there's all these
Mhm.
webinars, there's all these, this is what you
Right.
must do. Here's the 5 points. Here's what I did and how you go. Everyone's talking at you, telling you what you need to do.
Too. Yeah.
And you pay with your time and your energy and your money. And if it doesn't work for you, then they blame you. And I'm like, hell no, excuse me.
Buy the next course or the next book. Yeah.
Oh,
Go to the next seminar. Yeah.
if I'm sitting there listening to something and it doesn't feel right for me, I now know that is my gut telling me
Mhm.
this is not your path.
That's
And it
great.
might be for some people, but the
Yeah.
fact, and this is why I don't trust people who say this is what you have to do. No, it is not.
Mhm. Yeah. You resist that.
So, but I was stuck in that for years. I would ask other people, what do you think I should do?
Hmm.
And people would ask me, don't you think for yourself? And I was like, I don't know what you mean. I'm a female. I need to ask the male elders or the whatever, or I
Yeah.
need to consult the Bible, or what does that say? It's like, no, no. What do I say? What is my body telling me?
Right.
That has been a journey and a challenge, but
Mm.
I'm getting there. It's a lot easier now.
That's very interesting. Yeah. I'm thinking as you're talking, like I'm thinking about how about the times where you're being told something by a male or authority or a figure of authority. I can do this.
You
It's
can
not the
do
mic.
this, Peter.
Not the mic. It's me. A figure of an authority figure, or maybe someone who's coaching you, just for argument's sake, and they're saying something to you, right? And just because of the way they're saying it, it feels wrong because of what you grew up with. Are you able to distinguish in your gut? Okay, I don't like what they're saying, but I happen to know that it's a statement of truth. But I truly do not like what they're saying.
I can now.
Okay, good.
Well, I would take it as anybody saying anything to me
Right.
that I had to, that
Mhm.
I was always wrong and everyone else was right.
Right.
I lived by that for years. So even if I would stand up and say something, or if I had an opinion, or I felt something was off, and somebody challenged me, said, "No, Stephanie, that's wrong," I automatically go, "I'm wrong. They're right."
Hmm.
And now that I understand that everyone's opinions are not equal, or they're coming from their perceptions, from their biases, from their own background and experiences, doesn't take away from me. Also, maybe it's not about right and wrong. Maybe it's just about it's a variety of things.
Yeah.
So when I do get challenged now, or when I was going through kind of getting out of the authority of
Hmm.
other people,
Yeah.
I would get angry. And I still get a little bit triggered, but I'm
Hmm.
aware of what it is now, and I will examine,
Hmm.
even if how they're saying it comes across to me as like, ugh.
Yeah.
Is what they're saying something for me to look into, something for me to be challenged by?
Yeah. I
But
think it's
that takes getting like learning that your ego has to kind of
take
take
a
a little
side,
break.
right shotgun, right? Yeah. Yeah.
It's a
But I feel like as
process.
you're talking about, I mean, I feel like that default setting of that person's wrong or just questioning it. I think that's the right way to go because if you're just taking a statement of consequence, right, at face value, it may be right or it may be wrong. But if your default method is to just say no or question it, that's good because what that does, that brings it into your realm of scrubbing that thought and really discerning what's going on here. So you have that pause, right? And I don't think you can go wrong with that. We're not dealing with life or death choices and situations every day, right? Most of the time, we're not. And I think it's really good if that is your default setting because you can't I don't say you can't get hurt. The chances of you getting hurt are decreased significantly getting hurt by that information. If you at least take a beat and just think about it, as opposed to just going along with it and just being agreeable. I
Yeah.
find I'm very an agreeable person because I have the tendency to people please, right? And I want to fix problems. But I'm also learning that no, take a beat. There's nothing wrong with silence in a conversation. Uh, though it may feel awkward, it's fine. And a lot of times, right, people who are talking at you very quickly, it's kind of salesy. And if it sounds it,
Ugh.
it probably is. So it kind of takes the power, it shifts the power dynamic in that conversation or that exchange when you just pause, right? And have that silence. And maybe observe how they're reacting to your silence or be a
Yeah.
little more what's the word I'm looking for? A little more discerning with your answers instead of just going yes, no, or that's right, or yeah, just like really take a beat in between. And I'm sure there's books and seminars on all that, but I just find in my real life, right, it just works a little bit better.
Discernment's a good word.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it takes wisdom to get there,
Mhm.
to learn to discern between somebody and what comes up a lot of times. And I have met people like that. I mean, we're all like this at some point.
Yeah.
The ego will take over. So when I've met coaches, and especially when you start learning stuff, you get excited and you want other people
Yeah.
to learn it. You start
Right.
talking at them. That was also huge in the Christian world where like, somebody would become a Christian and
Mhm.
they're like, "Oh boy." They get all
Mhm.
excited. They're like, "You need to know about Jesus." And like
Right.
they're like off-putting because like, okay, slow down. Um it takes a maturity and a wisdom to learn how to be there for people, listen to them, but don't talk at them. And there can be that sense of ego that comes up when I need to tell you what you need. And I got that a lot. And I did that to people too when I had maybe something over them, right?
Yeah.
Like if there's
Yeah.
somebody even less, um,
Gotcha.
even more insecure than me,
Hmm.
then I was that person who was like, you need this
Right.
because we just go along with what we're given and we just continue that pattern.
Yeah. And we're all still trying to figure it out. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
We're all trying to figure it out. And you know what
We've
I mean?
all
Like
done
that's
it.
the
We've all
bottom
had it
line.
done to us.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. And I think there is a wisdom that comes with that, but also like that gut feeling that we're talking about, right? That is pretty much instantaneous. And a lot of times it's just a matter of us taking that beat for ourselves to say, okay, that's what I'm feeling. I felt it before. It was there before the sentence was complete out of their mouth. What am I going to do with it? I have to change. Like sometimes instantaneously, you know that. So it's not a matter of learning to be discerning or gaining the wisdom. It's just a matter of tuning in and aligning with that intuitive wisdom that you already have and just obeying it and aligning with it.
Yeah. I actually have an example for that.
Hit it.
So now, as a male, you might not know what this feels like, probably. But as a female, we were taught to be submissive, many of us were not taught to have boundaries of our own bodies. So when I lived in Toronto,
Yeah.
I moved there at 29. So I was a grown up. But I was in situations where a man would like touch me, like touch my knee or put my hair behind my head, my hair behind my ear, in an like intimate thing that no
Right.
man should
Period.
has the right to do, especially if I just
Period.
met you on the subway.
Stop. Absolutely.
And I would feel very uncomfortable.
Hmm.
But because I thought, well, I can't say don't touch me because you're seen as a B word. And we were not given that stand forward as a powerful woman saying no. I didn't
Yeah.
know I could do that. But I can tell you my gut was like, don't freaking touch me.
Yeah.
But I was frozen.
Mm.
So, and that's why I'm like, raise your daughters to be powerful, raise your
Yeah.
daughters to
Yeah.
know that they don't have to put up with that because it is very uncomfortable. And that's why we speak out. That's why we love it when men understand,
Yeah.
guys, this is what we go through constantly.
Yeah.
And um, if I had known that, I would have said, don't touch me. But I felt within me like, ah, and I didn't do anything because I didn't know that I could trust that feeling. Does
Right.
that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. And just listening to it, it kind of burns my ass, to be honest with you, because I despise that type of behavior. And
If you were
and
there, you would have been like,
yeah.
maybe not punch.
Uncle Pete's here. Okay, let's just go because we'll be better off if we just. But yeah, that really bothers me to even hear that, and I'm sorry that you dealt with that, maybe more than once, right? I'm assuming, but that's very much alive and well today, or alive and sick. That type of behavior, and Stephanie Ann Webb is one of those people that will eventually, if you've not already started that, bring young people, young women into that power. And I know it's supposed to be said, and I know it's supposed to be talked about in schools, but it's not talked about enough because it's one thing to just glaze over it during a class or during a one conversation or two conversations with a teacher, a parent, older brother, sister, whomever. But it's something different when it's all around us. That over sexualization of a whole society, and that targets young people and really rewards that type of behavior for young men.
hmm
And
Yeah, it's like
yeah,
teach your
absolutely,
sons not to do that. Thank you very much too, right?
yeah,
We
yeah. No,
all
no, it's
need
very important
to
to that.
we all need to be learning and
Yeah.
be taught that because it's not just one gender or the other. But
And I think some women, like this is what I've come to learn too. Women, girls already have an internal creepiness compass. Like they can really tell if they get creepy vibes from a guy. I don't care if it's a family member. Like obey that, right? And I think that should be taught too, because even if there's no touching going on, just the tone of a conversation, there's a grooming that happens and whatnot, and it just no, it's not innocent the way you're saying those things. It's not just a regular happenstance that someone may be telling a sexually suggestive joke to another adult within earshot of a young person, and they're doing it specifically for targeting, for purpose of targeting that person and grooming them.
yeah, kids know.
Yeah,
And then they're told to stuff it. Oh, no, no, no. You have
right.
to go hug Uncle Creepy, right?
Yeah, that's Uncle Creepy or Aunt Creepy. Yeah, yeah, it's
It's
okay.
kind of a whole other discussion, but
Yeah,
but I mean it's
yeah,
that gut
hmm,
instinct is innate. Like
right.
it's within us. We know. But when you're raised in a certain way and you start to not you learn to not trust it anymore, that's very dangerous, I
There
think.
was a reenactment or a 2020 interview many years ago about a woman, and she was one of a few people that they interviewed, and she was a sexual predator, right? And she worked at a daycare, right? And what she was saying really struck me because she said people really don't suspect a woman to be a sexual predator of really young children. They, especially if they're working at, like, the guy is always seen as a creepy one, and that's probably true. But she said because of that, she was able to do what she did, because there was no one suspected it. No one suspected it. So that was really, I found it to be very interesting. I'll have to find that. I want to say it was 2020. I'll find it. I'll look it up and let you know what that was. What interview it was more than a decade ago.
Well,
But
and that's where when we always put the focus on men,
yeah,
there are women serial killers, murderers,
yeah,
abusers,
yeah,
and it's a smaller portion. However, when those people who have been abused, they try to come forward.
yeah.
They don't feel like they're heard. People don't. They're like, no, 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 a woman wouldn't do that. Well, they do,
They do.
right? And
Yeah,
that's once again the label or that
mhm,
generalization of a group.
yeah.
Yeah, maybe for the most part, sometimes whatever, but no, it's not always. And so, but this comes back to also critical thinking, like when we were talking about discernment,
Hmm.
recognizing the manipulation of people. Uh, a lot of that comes down to critical thinking and
Hmm.
teaching children, teaching.
Right.
I had to go to university, and it
Hmm.
wasn't even for everybody. It was only those in philosophy studies who had to take critical thinking. And I'm like, I said to
Hmm.
my professor, and he agreed. I said, this should be taught in high schools. Also, media literacy should be taught in high schools.
Well,
I
there's a
remember
reason why
taking,
none of that is. There's a reason why it's not, and it's designed that way, which
girl,
is disgusting. But
I remember taking marketing in high school,
by
and we did
design.
talk about how they market, but it was very, like, it's even more intense now with the propaganda, the
Hmm.
clickbait titles, everybody's opinions online.
Very insidious. Very
Oh,
insidious.
that's a whole other topic too.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that. I like that as a topic.
But this goes into so many different. I
Make
mean,
note of
that
that.
trusting your gut. If I see a very clickbaity title and I recognize the wording,
Yeah.
even if I do watch it, I'm like, yeah, I'm not buying into this. I don't like those where they go, so and so owned that person. I'm like, ew.
You know
You
what really
own them?
bothers
Like,
me? Do you know what really bothers me?
what?
When you're scrolling and you hear this, you hear, I don't know who needs to hear this today, but, and then I do that,
No.
that puts me on another level of, like, I'm like, seriously? Like, that's just so, and it's very generic statements. And like at any given day, like people have either felt like that or maybe they feel like that once a day. And and they're susceptible to that because there's people who are scrolling like that, right? It ain't all entertainment. It's just not, right? You're
Mhm.
looking for something. You're looking for answers. You're looking for a feeling. You're looking for that dopamine hit that you've gotten used to, right? So it's not like you're just scrolling for entertainment purposes or it's fun, right? And the folks at the major social media places and their algorithms, they know that obviously. Um, and but it works, right? It works because people are looking for something. And but anything like that, anything that sounds clickbaity, really I have trouble with. I
Hmm.
don't like it. I don't because to me it takes away from, like, people say, well, this is how you capture them, this is how you bring them to your site. Yeah, but no. Like if you're putting out quality content, right? And you're doing it for the betterment of not just your bottom line, but for human beings, right? Or for even animals. Like if what you're doing is baseline good for them, then the law of reciprocity and compensation will see to it that you're compensated, right? And it may not come as quickly as the other way, but the other way is not sustainable because the next guy or gal is being just as clickbaity as you are, and AI will always be more clickbaity than you are, and quicker at it, right? So,
I love that you said that because sometimes I don't want to be clickbaity, but sometimes you're tempted because you're like, well, that's how they get the million views. But I'm
right.
like, I don't. want to play this game.
Yeah.
It's gross.
Yeah.
And you're manipulating people and their feelings and what they want to click on. It's
Right.
manipulation.
Right.
And my gut is always right when I see that.
Yeah.
And so I used to buy into it when I didn't know any different. But
Yeah.
now I'm like, nope.
So you'll
And
know it's clickbaity because when you put out a title, you'll know because it feels right, right? Even if it sounds, very attractive, alluring, there's nothing wrong with that at all. But when you're doing it for the deception, if the title is it, right, and then when you get that ebook or you like, it's empty. That's clickbaity BS, right?
oh yeah.
There's something that sounds or looks appealing, right? There's nothing wrong with that. If the content is that much more delicious, for lack of a better term, and there's so much value added with the actual content once someone clicks, that link.
It's all about adding value. And when you have that as your core value,
Yeah.
it means something different than I just want you to click so I can get more views, so I can make money. And I
Yeah.
mean, that's what they're doing. That's their journey.
Yeah.
Fine. But I don't want to do that. And
Right.
I keep coming back to playing the short game and the long game.
Mhm.
You see this all the time, right? Somebody will like they're doing that kind of thing and they're making millions of dollars quickly. Remember a few years back when you saw these families doing vlogs and they move into their mansion because they
Yeah.
put their kids on camera. And then years later, you hear how terrible the family situation was. The kids won't speak to their
Right.
parents. They were
Right.
playing the short game. They
Big
got
time.
their mansion, they lost their family and probably the mansion too.
Right.
Um, and I'm thinking, yeah, you did that for clicks, for money,
Mm.
but because it wasn't in this sense of what's the right wording for that? You're not well, you're not
Benevolence,
playing you're
good
you're
faith,
good
benevolence.
faith.
Yeah.
And so every time I think of something like I see other people and I'm like, I'm struggling right now. But
Right.
I go, I know
Right.
I'm not going to buy into that because we're playing the long game and I want to be authentic. I want to be real.
Right.
I want people to know that I am me.
Right.
I don't want to pretend any like at all. Because I
And
grew
here's,
up in a lot of pretense and fakeness, and it
yeah.
was gross to me. And I didn't connect
Right.
with people
Hmm. Yeah.
because I
And
felt it.
part of that game is, yeah, sure. No, I understand that. Part of that game is like you didn't create the like if you don't catch someone's attention in the first however many seconds, they're just going to keep scrolling. So you didn't create that. So that's part of that culture that you still may have to participate in just to drive someone to what you're offering, right? But again, if it's good value and it's a good product, and if you are selling something, as long as you give them more in use value than they pay in cash value, then that's a win, 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 win. And that really is the key there.
I just thought of something.
Okay.
Okay. Well, guess what I'm thinking?
But
You just said win, win, win. Oh, you don't
yeah.
know. Okay. When Michael Scott
Oh, okay.
had, oh, anyways, he wanted, what was that episode? Wait, conflict resolution on The
Okay.
Office. And
Mhm.
it wasn't just win-win, it was win-win-win.
Oh,
Sorry, random.
cool. Michael Scott.
Michael Scott.
Mhm. Yeah, so I think it's really important to to pay attention to your gut and pay attention to that inner compass, that discernment. And if you're in a place, say, like you don't know how that feels, well, you definitely have it by virtue of you're a human being. So you have that inner knowing, that inner intuition, and if we're so used to just being so agreeable and going for the next clickbaity thing, maybe it's time to take a pause and really listen to not even the thoughts in your head because they'll trick you,
Mm,
but the feeling in your body. And I think that's really key. If we really were able to feel that in our bodies, and that may take a little bit of practice if you haven't done it in a while or you've never done it, but rest assured, it is there. It is there. So,
yeah, and I just want to say on top of that, I would have people say, Stephanie, trust your gut, trust your intuition, trust what your body is saying.
Yeah.
But I didn't, when people, it's like when people say, well, just don't let that bother you or this, you're like, okay, I don't know how, right?
Mhm.
So I had anxiety.
Yeah.
So my body was always in fight or flight. So when
Mhm.
it was like, listen to your body, I didn't know what that meant because my body was always like, ah.
Yeah.
And it took the process for what I went through, which is not the same for everybody, but using those tools, getting help, coaching, working
So
with
important.
therapists, working on my own, like all these different things I did personally.
Yeah.
Now I know
Discern.
how to, when anxiety pops up, I know what it is. I know how to manage it. I don't have that anxiety anymore in the sense of like a condition.
Yeah.
And I can trust that intuition, that
That's
inner
great.
voice. But it took time. So when people used to say, just trust your gut, I'm like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if that is you, don't
Hmm.
worry. Like that's normal for many people who live like that. But we can get there. There's always hope with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this has been an interesting conversation on Echoes of Understanding with you, Stephanie, and me, Pete. And yeah, I look forward to our next episode. Whatever that's going to be, we'll figure that out. Right?
Sometimes we figure it out on the day. There you
Yeah.
go. Thanks, you guys. Do you have any
Scott.
parting words of wisdom, Peter?
Um,
Oh, sorry, I put
live
you on the spot.
strong. You did, but live strong, live fast, and live well. Yeah.
There you go.
Makes sense. Okay, great.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.